Good day, grade 12s. Welcome to our lesson for technical mathematics. The topic that we are going to be discussing for today's lesson is algebra. And remember, this is form part of paper 1, and it's one of the topic that contribute a lot of marks for paper 1. So it's a very, very important topic. Let us try our level best to understand every concept that falls under algebra, and then also we should also get the examination guideline to look into that and check under algebra what things that you need to know before you can go and write the final exam. And then also try to collect all the previous question paper so that you can now take questions under algebra and try to practice and prepare yourself for this coming final exam. Now let's start our topic for today and see. All right, under content, like we've said that we're going to be discussing under algebra, and then there are so many things that falls under algebra that we need to revise, and then you can see this topic contribute 50 plus or minus 3 marks for paper 1. So out of 150, you can imagine having one topic weighting 50 plus or minus 3 marks. So it's a very lot marks. Then under algebra, we'll be looking at quadratic equation and inequalities. So try to look questions that talk about quadratic inequalities, and then you go to simultaneous equations, and then changing subject of the formula and solve, and then from there we move to binary numbers, and then nature of roots, and then we will go to exponents and sets and logs, and the last point is complex numbers. So you can see this majority of these concepts, we have done them in grade 11. So it's just going to be a repetition for us, just remind ourselves on how do we go about each topic. And then you can see, for instance, this one of simultaneous, it will always be on the question paper. You just have to understand on how do you go about it, the simultaneous. Very important. Binary numbers, you must be able to add binaries, to subtract them, and you must be able to change binary number to decimal, vice versa, decimal to binary number. Of course, exponents and sets, you should also go and revise the law of exponents, and then look into that and see if you still remember on how to apply them. And then logarithms, you must also go and look, revise the rules, the law of logarithms, so that you can be able to solve any question that will come under logs. And then of course the complex numbers. The complex numbers, you should also go and look into that and revise everything under complex numbers. Now let's see what are we going to be having for this topic for today. Now before we can get into answering questions, these are the concept that one should master under algebra. So if we can be able to do everything that is appearing in the screen, then it will tell you that you are prepared for paper 1, particularly for algebra. So let us make sure that we revise everything that you see. First, you must be able to solve quadratic equation by factorizing and by using the quadratic formula. So remember, when you have factors, you have to factorize it. And then if it does not have factors, then you're going to be using what? Quadratic formula. All right. And you'll find most of the time, the first question on paper 1, 1.1, it will have factors, and then you'll have to just factorize it. And then the second one, that's where you are going to be using the quadratic formula. It does not have vectors, all right? But we are going to be discussing on that at a later stage and explain to you when you have to use the quadratic formula. The same applies with factorizing. If you have factors, how will you know if you have factors or not? The second one, quadratic inequality in one unknown. Interpret solution graphically. Inequality. We know inequality. You must be able to know on how to solve the inequality, but we are going to be discussing that as well on how do we go or how do we solve the inequality, because I have realized that majority of learners, they're really struggling under inequality. So I'm hoping that I will try my level best to explain to you on how do you go about inequality. And then when you have a quadratic under inequality, and then it will always have factors. You will always have factors, so that after getting your factors, you just factorize it, and then you then have the critical values. But I'm going to explain that later stage. Let me just proceed to the third one. It says equations into unknown, one of which is linear and other quadratic. Now this one we're talking about simultaneous. When you're solving simultaneous equation, and then you will always get one equation which is linear and the other one is going to be quadratic. All right. And then we then determine the nature of roots. Let us go and revise the nature of roots and look into that. How do we determine the delta and so forth? And then the other one, manipulating formula, make a variable the subject of the formula. So in this case, you will be giving an equation, for instance, and then it will ask you to make one of the variable a subject of the formula. So you must be able to work on that. All right. Then this one, add, subtract, multiply, and divide simple sets. Also, this one you should also be able to solve it. And then this one as well, most of the question of under this, it will say solve without the use of calculator. And then because learners, they will just, for instance, if they say simplify square root of 45 plus square root of 75, some they will just use calculator. They will press everything on the calculator and get the correct answer and write. And then others, they will do what? They will do steps before they can reach to the final answer. Hence, we emphasize the issue of not using not use the calculator to answer that one. It does not mean you don't use calculator at all. What we are avoiding is that we don't want learner to press a question as it is and get the answer. We want learner to simplify it until he or she have the answer. And then now, of course, the binary numbers, we also have to discuss that. Apply any law of logarithms to solve real life problems. And the last one, factorization involving the use of remainder and the factor theorem. That is the last one. Now let's get into today's business and see what are we going to be solving. All right, the first question under this says solve for x if x into x minus 9 plus 14 equals to 0. All right. Now for this one, if you have to solve for x, you first have to open the bracket first. That is the first step. And then you will get a mark just to open the bracket, because we will be putting it in the standard form, and there is a mark for that. So let's see on how do we do that. As the question, then the second step, you open the bracket, then you're going to obtain what? X squared minus 9x plus 14 equals to 0. That is in the standard form, all right? That is in the standard form. And then from there, you factorize it, because it does have factors. Factorize it. Then it's going to give us x minus 7 and then x minus 2 equals to 0. All right. Now, I understand sometimes learners struggle to factorize, especially when you have a bigger number like 14 and 9. So they struggle a lot. And sometimes there's a coefficient of x squared there is more than 1, maybe it's 2, 3, you understand? So they tend to not to understand how to factorize that. Then I sometimes advise such learners to use quadratic formula, but not on answering the question, but to use quadratic formula to help the learner to get the factors. For instance, if we were using the quadratic formula on this question, then the first answer you are going to get what? The answer is going to be 7. When once the answer is 7, and then you used the quadratic formula, it tells you that we have factors. Because the only way or the only time when you're going to see that you don't have factors is when you are getting a decimal number or a number in a set form. So once you get a number in a set form, or it gives us a decimal number, it tells you that we don't have factors. But the fact that the answer that you're going to get 7, and the other one is going to be positive 2, then it tells you that we have factors. So if the answer is 7, then meaning you'll say x equals to 7, like this. X is going to be 7. When you're using quadratic, it's going to give you 7. Now to get the first bracket, you're going to transpose this 7 to that side, then it's going to be x minus 7, then it's going to be the first bracket. And then the other answer is going to be x equals to 2. And then you're going to transpose 2 to the left-hand side, then it's going to give us x minus 2. Then it's going to give us the second bracket. So that's what I always advise learners, those who are struggling a lot, especially during this critical time where you are preparing yourself to write that final exam. All right, now these are the factors of this one, of this quadratic, and then let's just solve for x equals to 7 or x equals to 2. So those are two values of x. And then the second one is x squared minus x minus equals to 3, and correct two decimal place. Now, every time when you come across a question and it has this instruction next to it, it tells you that we don't have factors on this one. Then you just have to use quadratic quadratic formula. Just use quadratic formula straight. Correct two decimal place, because it tells us that the answer that you're going to get is going to be decimal, and then we just need two numbers after comma. So just go and copy the quadratic formula from formula sheet, and then just put it there. Then you press everything correctly, substitute correctly, press calculate correctly, so that you can get the correct answers, and then you'll get the full marks. Then let's see on how do we go about this one. All right, then you substitute b is -1, you can see b, and then here's b again, and then a is 1, and then c is -3, then this one, yes. Then you simplify it, and this is what you're going to be getting. All right, this one is going to be, and then from there you write the answer, which is 2,3, and the other one is -1,3. So that's your answers, right? Now let's proceed. All right, we still have another one where you have to solve for x, and this one, x into 2x minus 2 equals to 4, and the x, okay, let me just start with this one first and discuss it. Now, the problem with this one, you'll find that learners, when they have to solve this one, you'll just say x equals to 4, or 2x minus 2 equals to 4, and then they solve for x, and which is not correct. You'll only do that if it was 0 on the right hand side. For instance, if we have something like this, x minus, let me just write it in this manner. Let me just remove this one. All right, I will try to write because my pen did not move very well, very nice. This x, and then we have x as well there, minus 1, bracket. I hope you see this equals to 0. If the question was like this, and then they say solve for x, then the fact that this is equals to 0, then you are allowed to say x equals to 0. That is the x equals to 0, sorry. Let me just move that. This, okay. This is 0 there. Or x minus 1 equals to 0. Then x equals to 1. If you transpose that negative 1, it's going to be like, now if it's equals to 0, then you're allowed to what? To just solve straight. But now this one, it does not equals to 0, but equals to 4. So what is going to happen? Then we are going to reopen the bracket. We are going to open the bracket and take this positive 4 to the left hand side, so that you can, it's going to be equals to what? 0. Then we start factorizing afresh, and then we solve for x. So that's that. Let's see on how do we solve this one. You can see we have open bracket, we have 2x squared minus 2x minus 4 equals to 0. Then we just have to get the factors. These are the factors of that. And then after getting the factors, you just solve for the value of x. And then the first one is going to be negative 1, or x equals to positive 2. Those are that. And then the other question is this one, x into x plus 2 equals to 5. Then correct to 2 decimal place. I explain this one every time when you come across such question where you are solving x and it says correct to any decimal place. In this one, it say 2. So it's not always the case 2. It will depend on that question. How many numbers do we should write? And then, all right. Let me just remove this. All right. And then for you, before you can start using the quadratic formula there, you just have to open the bracket and write it in the standard form. All right. You should write it in a standard form. Let's see. And this equation, then you open the bracket, then you take this positive 5 to the left hand side, then hence is negative 5 there. So it's x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals to 0. And then in this case, we can see there are no factors. So it does not mean we cannot get the value of x, but we have to use the quadratic formula. Let's use the quadratic formula. You substitute correctly there. And then the answer, first answer is going to be 1,45 equals to negative 3,5. So those are two answers that we're getting. Now the last question, square root of x plus 3 equals to 1 plus x. Now every time when you come across a question where you are solving the value of x, and then the x is inside the square root. So the only way to solve this one, you have to get rid of that square root, because now you cannot be able to solve the value of x while we still have the square root. So now we'll have to get rid of the square root. Now sometimes you'll find this question, it might be like this. Let me just show you something. Let's say we have negative 1 equals to what? Equals to x. It's like this. Now, before we can solve that question, if it's like this, let us make sure that on the left hand side you can see we've got two terms, this one and this one. It's got two terms. Now, anything which is not part of the square root, or it's not inside the square root there, we remove it in that side. We have to remove that. Now, in this case, you can see negative 1 is outside. So it's not part of this square root. So we have to remove it. So the only way to remove it is when you transpose this one to the right hand side, and it's gonna be plus 1 this side. So that before we can put square, we can square both sides. We have to make sure that on the left hand side we are left with the square root. But now the question that we're having, it's already having only a square root on the left hand side. So we just have to do what? To square it. let's see, there's a question, then you start square it. So that because the aim to square this one is to get rid of what? Is to get rid of this square root. And then the second step, of course, we're going to be left with x plus 3. And then here, remember, when you say 1 plus x all squared, then you have to repeat this bracket twice. Then you apply what you call FOI. Then it's going to give us x squared plus 2x plus 1. And therefore, we transpose everything to one side, like we did here, which is x squared plus x minus 3 minus 2. Because if we take this negative positive x on the right hand side, it's going to be 2x minus x, which is x. Then if we take this 3, that side is going to be negative 3. So it's going to be 1 minus 3 is minus 2. So that is that. And then you factorize it. And then from there, you solve the value of x. But now every time when you come across this kind of a question, please every time test your answers, because one of the answer is not a solution. Do never give you a solution. For instance, if you take negative 2, you put it here. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. All right. And then if we put negative 2 here, 1 minus 2, and there is minus 1. So minus 1 is not equals to 1. Hence, we are saying x should not be equals to negative 2. And then x equals to 1. If we put 1 here, is 1 plus 3 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then 2 equals to 2. You see? So that's how you should solve this question. Right, we are solving simultaneous now. Solve x and y simultaneously. You can see we're having two equations there. Solution, you write the first equation, x plus y equals to 2 is the first equation, x squared plus y squared equals 34, second equation. Now in this one, you'll have to create the third equation. And then every time when you have to create the third equation, we just have to use the equation that looks very easy. For instance, equation 1, you can see you can make x the subject of the formula, or you can make y to depend on you. Then in this case, we've made y the subject of the formula. And then this is what we did. So we just transpose this positive x on that side so that we have y equals to 2 minus x. All right. And then when we have to substitute equation 3 into equation 1. This one into that, where we see y, then we're going to be substituting with 2 minus x. This is what you did. And then you just open the bracket. Then you're going to have this. You add the like terms. So you put it in a standard form like this. And then you just simplify it. You can divide with 2 into 2, 1 into 4, 2 into 13, 15. And then we just factorize it. It factors, and the value of x, x equals to 5 or x equals to negative 3. And then now we are looking for the y corresponding values. Now I always advise learners to use the third equation. Why? Because already y is the subject of the formula. There's no need for that learner to transpose, to divide, and like that. So you just have to put the value of x there. You say 2 minus that value of x, then you will get y. All right, instead of using the first or the second, but you can still use them. It's going to give you the same answer that you'll be getting on the third equation. But now on the third equation, already y is the subject, like I've said, then you don't have to transpose anything. So if you just put 2 minus 5, then you'll get minus 3. Let's see, this is for that. Then it's going to be positive 2 plus 3. And the answer is negative 3, and the other is 5. So that's how you should now solve the simultaneous equation. It's very important. And then let's go. Now inequality. Then inequality was now solving the inequality. I also alluded the inequality earlier on, that you always have factors. You always have factors under inequality. You can see that we're having 2x squared minus 7x plus 3, and you'll find majority of learners they struggle to factorize this, especially when coefficient of x squared is 2 or more. If it's not 1, then the problem starts there. So I always advise learners to use quadratic formula just to help them to get the factors, not to use quadratic on this one. You have to get the factors because you get a mark just to write factors. You get a mark, so we cannot afford to lose that mark because we don't know how to factorize. I'm saying you can be able to use the quadratic formula just to help you to get the factors. Remember earlier on I did explain on how do you go about that. So now the factors of this one is 2x minus 1 and x minus 3. So after getting the factors, you're going to write the critical values or a critical point. It's a critical point. So if you solve for x there, it's going to be half. And if you solve x, there's going to be 3. Then what is going to happen? Then you're going to be putting this critical points on the number line. Let's see. So, but it's going to be plus, minus, plus, and then just put them like that, right? And then I hope you understand why positive this side, why negative between, why positive to other side. Is because if you take any value after 3, like 4, 5, 6, 7 to positive infinity, you just put that value where you see x. The answer that you want to get is going to be positive. And then you take any number between half and 3, you put it there. The answer is going to be negative. The same with this one of positive. The answer is going to be positive always. All right. Then now we have to answer this question. They say this is greater or equals to 0. So anything which is greater 0, it must be positive. So meaning we are going to be starting from this and taking this direction because we have to go to positive. We go this direction. This is the direction. You understand? So now what is the answer? Is this one. X is less than or equals to half, because from half to the left, those values they are less than this half. So x is represent those numbers which are less than half. So it's x is less than or equals to half. Then the same with this one, x is greater or equals to 3. From 3 to the right, those values they are greater and 3. So it's x is greater or equals to 3. So that's that. Solve simultaneous again. Let's see the question. The first question you can see is this one, and the first equation and the second equation. Solution. These are the equations. Now, because we did not create the third equation, why? Because you can see that the second equation already y is the subject of the formula. So there is no need for us to create a third equation. We only do that if we don't have any equation where x or y is the subject of the formula. All right, it tells, so if that's the case, it means that you are going to be substituting this equation into 1. Where you see y, then you're going to be substituting with x squared minus 1. So this is what we did. And then from there, we just continue. We open the bracket. Thereafter, we add the like terms. This is what we're having. Then you factorize it. And then you have the x values of the simultaneous. Then you have to get the y corresponding value, which is 3/4, and the other one is y equals to 2. I hope you still remember how to obtain this one. After getting 3/2, you take this to second equation, just substitute the value of x, then you press a calculator, and it will give you 3/2, and this one you just put -1 there, it will give you what? +2. All right, the formula for calculating the distance traveled by the object at time t second is this is the equation. All right, make you the subject of the formula. Let's just do that. Then step number 1, because we want to make u the subject, then we're going to transpose this to that side. Hence is negative half. Actually, this is not t here. It's supposed to. No, it's not x. It's t. It's supposed to be t there. And then the second step there, you then divide with t both sides. This is what we're having. So that is the u. Hence, calculate the value of u if acceleration is 3 meters per second squared, and distance travel after 4 seconds is 36 meters. And then substitute the values. Then the answer is going to be what? 3. Right? The answer is going to be 3. So that is that. All right. Add the following binary numbers, and then we'll be having this first. This one, you add the 2, which is 0 plus 1, it gives us 1. That is the first one. Then you add the second one, 1 plus 0, it gives us 1. Then 0 plus 1 gives us 1. 1 plus 0, it gives us 1. 0 plus 1, it gives us 1. And then 1 plus 0, it gives us 1. So that's how we should now add what? The binary numbers. For instance, if we had 0, 1, 1, then we have to add the 2. Then it's going to be 1 plus 1 equals 0. Carry 1. 1 plus 0, you just say 1. So this is the answer for that. All right. Then let's proceed. Write the 2s binary number. Then let's write this. Write the 2s binary number. So the decimal number, we write it to binary number. Let's see on how do we do that solution. So this is the answer that we got. So that's where we have to start. You just put 32 here, and then base 2. Then you say 2 into 32, 16. There is no remainder. You put 0 there. And then 2 into 16 is 8. There is no remainder. Then you put 0 there. And then 2 into 4 is 2. There's no remainder there. 2 into 2 is there's no remainder there, 0. And then 2 into 1, there is a remainder. It's called 0.5. Then if there is a remainder, you put 1 there. So every time when you write this number, you want to start it from the bottom and then to top. Then it's going to be 1 0 0 0 0. All right. If we write this one, it's going to be 1 0 0 0. So the answer for 32 is equals to 1 0 0 0 0 0. That is the 32 in terms of binary numbers. Simplify without the use of calculator. The first one, let's see on how do we do that. Then we have 6 multiplied by 3 to the power 2y, and 3 to the power 2y times this 2y. So it means we can see that on the numerator, we have how many terms? 2 terms. Then we're going to take, we have to look for the common factor there. And then the common factor you can see is 3 to power 2y, which is this one. And this one you're going to have it. And this one is going to cancel this one. Then we're going to be left with 6 minus 3. The answer is equal to 3. That's how you should answer. The second one, for instance, this one, some learners, they will just press everything on the calculator and get the correct answer. Then you're not going to be given that mark for that answer, because we are not supposed to use calculator. Now, after writing this, then you write 75 to be 25 times 3. So you're looking for perfect square and then non-perfect square. Then 25 times 3. Then this one we're going to minus it first. And then 16 times 3 is how much? Let's see. It's going to be 48 if I'm not mistaken. Let me check. 16 times 3. It's 48. 16 times 3 is 48. Because you said 64 minus 16. It gives us 48. And 48 is going to be 16 times 3. Therefore, you're going to say square root of 25 is 5. Then square root of 3, you leave it because it's a non-square. And then 16 is 4, and the square root of 3, leave it like that. Then you can see the square root of 3, square root of 3, you can be able to subtract them. So it's 5 minus 4 is 1. So the answer is square root of 3. And then log, let's see on how do you go about log. Then we're going to say this 16 is going to be 4 to the power of 2. 37 is going to be 3 to the power of 3. Then the second step, remember, there is a law that tells you that you should bring this to this side, bring this 3 to the other side. Then this is what we're having. Then we know that log 4 base 4 is 1, log 3 base 3 is 1. So the answer is going to be 2 times 3, which is 6. So the answer is supposed to be 16. This one is going to be 1. This one is going to be 1. Then 2 times 3 is 6. Solve for x under log, and this log into x minus 2 all squared base 10. This base 10 equals to 6. And then the other one is log into 3x plus 2 base 3, log 2 base 3 equals to 2. Let's see on how we do that. To solve for x, you should now take log form into exponential form. That's how we should go about it. Now, this one, we're going to take it to exponential form. Let's take it to exponential form. It's going to be this, and then 10 as a base to power 6. Then you open the bracket, then you bring that side, minus 8, then you factorize this one. These are the factors, and then it's going to be x equals to 11002, or x equals to it's not equals to negative 998, because if you take this value here, substitute where you see x is not be equals to this 6. It's not going to be equals to 6. It's only 1002 that is going to be equals to 6. Then we move to the next question, and then this is what we remember. If we have the same base, then you add, then you're going to multiply this and 2. This is what we did, we multiply them together. After doing that, we then take it to exponential form. This is what we are going to be having after taking to exponential form. Then you open the bracket, then you solve x. The x is going to be 5 over 6. So that is the answer for that. Simplify the following without the use of calculator. 3 to power n, 3 to power 4 to single base. Let's see. If we have the same base, you multiply, you add the exponent. This is what we did. We add the exponent. All right, so it's quite easy. Then the second one, you can see under denominator, we are having 2 terms. Once we have 2 terms, you must think about the common factor there. Let's see. then you're going to take common factor. Yes, we did take out the common factor, which is 3 to power n. Then we're going to divide this. This one is going to give us 1. Then second step, we just multiply 2 times 9. Then 18 minus 6, which is 75. Then you just press your calculator there. Is going to simplify for you, which is 21 over 25. And the second question, which is 32 minus 72 plus 18. Then avoid using a calculator on this one. Don't just press calculator there, step by step. Now for 32, you're going to be looking for two values. The one should be non-perfect square, the other one should be perfect square. And then you can see 16, the perfect square, 2 is non-perfect. So 16 times 2 gives us 32. 32 times 2 is give us 72. 18, 9 times 2 is into 80. Then from there we say square root of 16 is 4, square root of 2, still there the same, it remains. And then square root of 36 is 6, square root of 3, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 2. Then from here you can say 4 minus 6 plus 3. Then you give us what? 1. Then it's going to be square root of 2. It's going to be square root of 2. Log, let's see how to solve log. Negative log into this plus this one. Let's see the second step. You take out a negative as a common factor there. And then from there, you're going to, now remember this log 1. You remember about log 1 there. Log 1 is going to give us 0. Log 1 base 1. When you press calculator log 1, it gives us 0. So here, hence, this side is gone. We are only left with this one now. Then now we're going to rewrite this 243. So remember 243 is 3 to the power of 5. 3 to the power of 5. Then you bring this 5 this side. You can see we have already write this 5 on the left hand side, which is negative 5 log 3 base 3. So log 3 base 3 we know is 1. So the answer is going to be negative 5. That is the answer. We are given z1 equals to 3 minus 4i, and this one, determine now this one. Let's see. Actually, it's supposed to be multiplication here, not division. So it's z1 multiplied by z2. Let's fix this one. Z1 multiplied by z2, not addition. It's not addition, it's multiplication. Then that's what we did. So then here we just have to remind ourselves that I squared equals to negative 1. So let us just remind ourselves. So we are going to multiply the 2, this one together with this one. So after doing this one, we multiply them together. Then you are going to be obtaining negative 3 plus 2, 21i plus 4i equals 28i squared. The third step, then what you do, you add the like terms. Now these are the like terms. 21i plus 4i is 25i. Then remember I said that I squared is equals to negative 1. So instead of I squared, you just substitute with negative 1. And then from there, you say negative 3 plus, because this one is going to give us positive, plus 28 is going to give us positive 25 plus 25i. So that is the answer for that. Given this, and they say calculate the modulus. So if they say calculate the modulus, then remember we are looking for that R. Let's remind ourselves on how do we determine that. Let's calculate for the modulus, which is R equals to A squared plus BX. Remember this one is A, this one is A plus BI. So then you can see that the value of A in this case is negative 2. The value of B is 1. So we're just going to substitute that values, press calculator, the answer is going to be square root of 5. determine the argument of z, calculate the argument of z. Now, the best way to calculate this one, or to get it right, you first have to sketch roughly so the what, the agar diagram. Let us draw that terminal arm. From this one, you can see -2. -2 is this side. This is -1, because remember, A represent x values, B represent y values, and these are real numbers, these are imaginary numbers. So this is -1 somewhere here, -2 there, and then this is +1. So it is on the what? This angle that we are looking for, which is the argument, it is on the second quadrant, and we know on the second quadrant is 180 minus, hence we have 180 minus there. All right. So every time when you have to calculate for argument, the angle, you first have to start here to draw the argument diagram. Then it will tell you which quadrant, so that we know if it's what is on the second quadrant. You just say 180 minus. If it is in the third quadrant, it's going to be 180 plus. If it is the terminal arm, it is on the fourth quadrant, then you're going to say 360 minus that angle. Now, after determining the modulus, we then have to calculate the argument, and this is what we're going to be getting: 180 minus, and then 1/2. Remember, tan is B over A. So B is 1, we agreed B is 1, and then A is 2, hence we're having 1/2. Then you just press your calculator. The angle that's going to be formed there is going to be 153.43 degrees. Expressed in Z in the polar form. Let's write that. You can see R, we have determined it. Theta, we have also determined it. To just substitute those values. And then this is in the polar form. Remember this, it is rectangular form. Now we had to convert it to polar form. Given this one expressed as in the rectangular form, we are now given in the polar form. Let us learn on how do we convert it to rectangular form. Let's see. This is what we are having. This is the question. The second step, then we are going to rewrite it like this. Instead of writing C, we just write cos theta there. And then this I is this one, and then S is psi, so it's sin theta there. Then we just say it's 45. How do we obtain 45? Remember, pi, it is in terms of radians. So if we convert it to degrees, it's going to give us 180. So 180 divided by 4 is 45. So hence we are having 45 there, also 45 there. All right. And then from there, you say cos 45 is square root of 2/2 plus I. Sine 55 is also square root of 2/2. Then from there, you're going to multiply or open this bracket with this 4 outside. Then it's going to give us 2 square root of 2 plus 2 square root of 2. So that is the answer. Now it is in the rectangular form. Write down the conjugate of that. Let's write the conjugate. Remember the conjugate, you just change the sign of the imaginary part. So it was positive, you can see it was positive, now it's negative. Just change the sign of this imaginary number there. All right. Solve x and y if x plus yi equals to this. So now before we can equate these two, x to those that don't have I, then you have to first open this bracket. Let's open the bracket and see. After opening the bracket, this is what we're going to have. And then from there, you change this I squared to -1, and this is what we're having. Thereafter, we can now say x equals to this, and then this one equals to that. And then 32, and then y, then you divide, then it's going to give us x as 34. It's going to give us x34, and then this one you just divide with I, then y equals to -12. That's how you should now solve that one. Very easy and simple. All right, thank you very much for being with me on this very interesting lesson. I hope whatever we have discussed, then is going to help you to understand everything under algebra. And then let me just leave you with this message in front on the screen here that says, never give up. Today is harder, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thanks. Bye.